Dear students, last class we were discussing about free energy. So entropy as well as free energy are the terms introduced by second law of thermodynamics to predict spontaneity and the feasibility of the process. So today we are going to derive the relationship between standard free energy change and equilibrium constant. The last topic in the lesson is third law of thermodynamics. So first to consider a reversible process. Reactants will combine together to produce the product. This is a forward reaction, and the formed products will combine together to produce reactants again. This is the backward process. So consider a reversible process. Reversible process will reach equilibrium at one particular stage. So we already studied much about equilibrium in 8th lesson. So in equilibrium condition, the rate of forward reaction will be equal to the rate of backward reaction. So we cannot get the product as well as we cannot get the reactants. So many informations we have already studied. Once a reversible process is reached an equilibrium, the condition will be dynamic. It will reach a dynamic situation. Always forward reaction and reverse reactions are taking place simultaneously with equal rate. So it will reach the situation called dynamic equilibrium. You cannot separate the product as well as you cannot separate the reactant. So what about free energy for this reversible equilibrium reactions? What is the condition for a spontaneous process? Delta G value should be negative. Free energy change should be a negative one for a feasible and spontaneous process. So in a reversible process, reaction takes place in two directions, forward direction as well as backward direction. So our assumption is delta G value should be negative for both forward reaction and backward reaction. If you take the formation of ammonia, nitrogen and hydrogen gases are combining to produce ammonia gas. The forward process is an exothermic process. That means the reverse process will be endothermic process. So our assumption is delta G value should be negative for both forward process and the reverse process, but this is practically impossible. So that for a reversible equilibrium process, delta G value will be a minimum one. Okay. So decrease of free energy in both directions is impossible, so that at equilibrium the free energy will be minimum. That means 0. Okay. So consider this reversible process. Reactants are A and B joining together to produce the product C and D. This is forward reaction. Again, C and D are behaving as reactants to give the products A and B. Reactions are taking place in both directions. And the very basic equation which relates free energy and equilibrium constant. So here are non-equilibrium conditions, so we use Q. So delta G is equal to delta G naught plus RT natural logarithm Q. Delta G means what? Free energy change. Delta G naught we measure at standard conditions. Standard free energy change. R is gas constant, T temperature, and natural logarithm of reaction quotient Q. The definition of equilibrium constant and the reaction quotients are already studied in chemical equilibrium lesson number 8. So it is given again. For equilibrium constant and reaction quotient, the process is the same. So how to calculate these two values? Product of concentration of products in the numerator divided by concentration of reactants in the denominator. This is the method of calculating both reaction quotient as well as equilibrium constant. Ratio of concentration of products to the concentration of reactants. This is the method of calculating both the values. But the only one difference is what? Whether the reversible process is in equilibrium condition or non-equilibrium condition. That is the difference. So if the reversible process is in non-equilibrium condition, that means a forward reaction will have a different rate than the backward process. A rate of forward and reverse reactions will not be equal. It is called a non-equilibrium condition. So under non-equilibrium condition, when you calculate the ratio of concentration of product to the concentration of reactants, it is called a reaction quotient Q. If the reversible process reaches equilibrium, in that case forward and reverse reactions are taking place with equal rate and simultaneously. It is called equilibrium. So under equilibrium condition, when we calculate this ratio, it is called equilibrium constant K. So you have to remind the difference between reaction quotient and equilibrium constant. Okay, now the reaction A and B gives product C and D. The reversible process is attaining equilibrium. Once equilibrium is attained, we should not use Q. Reaction quotient should not be used. Instead of Q, we have to use equilibrium constant K. Okay. So once equilibrium is attained, we already studied entropy change is zero. Overall entropy change is zero for a reversible equilibrium process. The same way, free energy value will also be minimum. That means zero. Okay. So free energy change will be zero for a reversible equilibrium process. So instead of Q, we have to substitute K, equilibrium constant. So delta G is equal to 0. Then delta G naught is equal to minus RT ln K. Okay. So this is the equation. This is 0. This RT natural logarithm Q comes into the left hand side, so it will get negative sign. So by rearranging the equation, standard free energy change is equal to minus RT natural logarithm of equilibrium constant KEQ. So now the equation is called want half equation. Now natural logarithm can be converted into logarithm. For that, we multiply the equation by value 2.303. So this is the relationship between standard free energy change and equilibrium constant. Okay, this is called want half equation. So with the help of this equation, we can calculate a standard free energy change if equilibrium constant is known, or else equilibrium constant can be calculated if we know the value of standard free energy change. Based on this, we have a problem 7.9. Okay, so the reaction is conversion of oxygen into ozone. The process of converting oxygen into ozone is a reversible process and it achieves equilibrium. Once equilibrium is reached, the equilibrium constant is calculated. So here equilibrium constant is measured in terms of partial pressure Kp. Both reactants and the products are in gaseous phase, so equilibrium constant will be calculated with the help of partial pressure of reactants and products. All these things we already completed. So 2.47 into 10 power minus 29. This is called the equilibrium constant. We have to calculate standard free energy change, and this is the formula. Instead of equilibrium constant, you substitute 2.47 and 10 power minus 29, and we know the value of gas constant. Now the reaction is taking place at 298 Kelvin. So substitute all these values, we will get answer 163.229 kilojoule per mole. And this is the last topic in thermodynamics. We have already completed first and second law of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics deals with interconversion of energy. Energy can be converted from one form into another form. It cannot be created as well as it cannot be destroyed. The overall energy of the system remains constant. This is first law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics predicts feasibility of the process, and we have calculated the efficiency of a machine. So how heat energy is converted into work. 100% efficiency of a heat engine cannot be achieved without doing some changes in the system. So we introduced the term entropy as well as free energy. With the help of entropy and free energy as well as enthalpy, we can predict the feasible and a spontaneous process. The third law of thermodynamics deals with absolute entropy value. Absolute means zero. Okay. So, will we have any substance with zero entropy? Entropy is a measure of randomness. Generally, entropy is directly proportional to temperature. So, entropy value will changes with the temperature. We consider ice. When ice melts, randomness increases, temperature increases, entropy also increases. At 0 degrees Celsius, water is existing as water. So randomness is very less, entropy value less. Just increase the temperature. So when the temperature is around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, we get liquid water. Randomness increases. So due to increase of temperature, entropy increases. At 100 degrees Celsius, due to increase of temperature, liquid water becomes water vapor. So entropy value increases. So entropy is directly proportional to the temperature. When temperature increases, entropy increases. When temperature decreases, entropy decreases. Okay, consider absolute zero temperature. What is absolute zero temperature? It means 0 Kelvin or minus 273 degrees Celsius. Okay, so you consider pure ordered arrangement of crystalline substance. We take a solid, it is having ordered arrangement in crystalline form. There are two type of solids, crystalline form and amorphous form. The proper three-dimensional arrangement will be possible in crystalline structure. So when we take any crystalline solid with proper three-dimensional arrangement, when we maintain absolute zero temperature, entropy value will also be zero. So absolute entropy will be achieved for a purely ordered crystalline substance when we maintain absolute zero temperature. When we maintain 0 Kelvin temperature, entropy of the solid will also be 0. But this is practically highly impossible. Okay. So absolute 0 Kelvin will remain unattainable. Okay. So this is very low temperature. At 0 Kelvin, all type of movements in the molecule will be stopped. So 0 Kelvin means minus 273 degrees Celsius. You think about it. At this temperature, all type of movements in the molecule will be stopped. We already studied. When we study internal energy, we said different type of movements are possible for molecules in the system. We take a water molecule. The water molecule are having different type of movements like translational, vibrational, then rotational. So different movements are there. So when we maintain 0 Kelvin temperature means all these type of movements will be arrested. So maintaining 0 Kelvin is a highly difficult one. So according to third law of thermodynamics, the entropy of pure crystalline substance at absolute 0 Kelvin is 0. Entropy value will be 0 when we maintain 0 Kelvin. And as I said, this is impossible to lower the temperature. By reducing the temperature to achieve 0 Kelvin is highly difficult. Okay. So third law of thermodynamics says when temperature is 0 Kelvin, entropy value will be 0 for perfectly ordered crystalline substance. You take crystalline substances with the defects. In 12th standard we will study okay how there are defects in the crystals. We don't have 100% properly arranged crystal. There will be some defects. Some of the ions will not be placed in the lattice point. It may be in the interstitial position. So during the crystallization process, there will be some defects. So when we take imperfect crystal, that means crystal with the defects, even when you maintain 0 Kelvin, entropy value will not be 0. As we said, entropy value will always be a positive value. Above 0 Kelvin, entropy will be a positive value. For imperfect crystals, if you maintain 0 Kelvin, the value will not be 0. It will be greater than 0. So entropy value cannot be a negative 1. Okay. So with this, we complete 7th lesson thermodynamics. So this is the basic one. Based on this only, we are going to study some other aspects, how fast a chemical reaction is taking place. So all these will be studied with the help of thermodynamics, and chemical equilibrium. We move into the next lesson. Lesson number 9, solutions, and this is not new to you. You already studied in 10th standard. So first, we have to know what is a solution and what are the components of a solution, how much types of solutions are available. So when we discuss about matter, it is of two types. Based on physical composition, a matter is of two types: mixture as well as pure substance. Generally, matter is classified into mixture as well as pure substance. The mixtures are prepared by physically mixing the pure substances. When two or more pure substances are physically mixed, we get mixes. And based on the uniformity, mixes are of two types: homogeneous and heterogeneous. The homogeneous mixes are called solutions. Okay. So simply, homogeneous mixers means solutions. In homogeneous mixture, there will be homogeneity. You cannot differentiate the components. You take sodium chloride in water. When 5 gram of sodium chloride is added in 100 gram of water, you will get only a clear solution. You cannot say this is sodium chloride particle, this is water molecule. Like that, you cannot differentiate. The components are uniformly distributed throughout the mixture. It is called the homogeneous mixture. So a solution is a homogeneous mixture made up of two or more pure substances. So in a solution, there will be two components. One is a solute, another one is a solvent. As you studied, the component which is present larger in amount, the substance which is in larger quantity in a solution is called a solvent, and the substance which is in lesser quantity in a solution is called solute. We take sodium chloride in water. If 10 gram of sodium chloride is added in 100 gram of water, water is in larger quantity, so it is acting as a solvent. Sodium chloride is added in less quantity, so it is acting as solute. Then classification of solutions. Solutions are of different types. You studied in 10th: true solution, colloidal solution, suspension. This is the type of solutions based on particle size. Then based on the solvent, we classify solution into two types: aqueous and non-aqueous. Aqueous represents water. So if any solute is added in water, we get aqueous solution. If water is acting as a solvent, it is called aqueous solution. Except water, other solvents are used. It is called a non-aqueous solution. You take benzene or carbon tetrachloride, or chloroform, ethers, and so on. So substances in these non-aqueous solvents are called non-aqueous solution. Then this is the classification of solutions based on the physical state. What is the physical state of a solute? What is the physical state of solvent? Based on this, we have 9 type of solutions. First one, gaseous solutions. Okay. So in gaseous solutions, the solvent will be a gas. Okay, first, solid in gas. Example, camphor in nitrogen gas. So if you take a smoke, dust particles will be present in the atmospheric air. This is a simple example of solid in gas. Camphor in nitrogen gas is an example of solid in gas. Next, liquid in gas. So this is the moisture or humidity. The atmospheric air contains moisture. So this is an example of liquid in gas type of solutions. Then gas in gas. Atmospheric air is a very good example of gas in gas type of solution. So atmospheric air is made up of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, noble gases, and so on. So all these components are spread uniformly. Next, liquid solutions. Liquid solutions represent the solvent will be a liquid. Okay. So first, solid in liquid. Solute is in solid phase, Solvent is in liquid phase. Example, salt water. If sodium chloride is added in water, we get a clear homogeneous mixture called solutions. Then liquid in liquid, both solute and solvent are in liquid phase. Example, alcohol in water. Even though alcohol is an organic substance, it is having polarity, so that it is soluble in polar solvent water. Next one, gas in solid. Example, soda water. You take all beverages, so carbon dioxide will be added in water, carbon dioxide dissolved in water, so that we get the carbonated water or soda water. Next one, solid solutions. So solute will be in different phases, but solvent will be a solid. You take solid in solid. All alloys are examples of this. Alloys are the homogeneous mixtures of metals. Metals will be heated to high temperature. After melting the metal, we mix different metals, we get alloy. So all alloys are examples of solid and solid type of homogeneous mixture. Next, liquid and solid. So you take amalgam. So amalgam is an alloy of any metal with mercury. Okay, so mercury is a liquid metal, so other metals are mixed, we get amalgam. Example, amalgam of potassium or amalgam of silver. These are all used for dental filling process. Okay. Next, gas and solid. So hydrogen, palladium. Solution of hydrogen gas in palladium metal. Or else if you take cork or pumice stones, these solids are having small pores, very small hole will be there. Atmospheric air will be present in the pores. So these are all examples of gas and solid. So two type of classifications we have completed. Classification of solution based on solvent. Next, classification of solution based on physical state. Okay, with this today's class over. We continue the remaining things tomorrow. Thank you.